Good morning. Good morning to everyone. My name is Joel Ocasio-Marcano. I'm Deputy Director for the Procurement Division for the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT programs. In this pre-proposal meeting, we're going to discuss the request for proposals, number CDBG-MIT-RFP-22-03, Services for Policy and Regulation Assessment Expert for MAPS program. I would like to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing person. Along with me is Catherine Vidal, Technical Specialist from the Procurement Division, Gabriela Cabrera Soldevila, Procurement Official, Carlos Olmedo, who is the Planning and Grant Director, and Carolina Fernandez Acosta from the Federal Compliance. Any questions submitted in this meeting will be answered in writing and will be published in an addendum. Any information provided in this meeting does not change the terms and conditions established in the request for proposal instructions. This meeting is being recorded and will be available in our CDBG YouTube channel. All procurement processes shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG program, CDBG-DR program, to guarantee full and open competition and fair treatment of all persons or entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available in our webpage and is incorporated by reference and made an integral part of the request for proposal. Now I'm gonna leave you with Carlos Almeida, who is going to explain the scope of services of this RFP.
Buenos días. Gabriela, I think I need you to stop sharing. No sé si eres tú o para yo poder compartir pantalla. Me dejan saber cuando puedan ver.
Sí, Carlos, se puede ver.
Perfecto, gracias. Good morning. I'm gonna present to you a little bit about the MAPS program, the Mitigation and Adaptation Policy Support Program. This is a long presentation, 28 slides. I am not going to discuss all of them, but all of them will be shared with you. So I'm gonna discuss the main items of each slide and each area that we want to work through this program, and other important information will be shared to you as part of the presentation. Okay. So the purpose of this program is to identify and address policy issues that we have regarding basically mitigation, but also other environmental and planning aspects of the reconstruction and recovery of Puerto Rico. We have a budget of $10 million to do it. And the idea is basically to evaluate existing laws, regulation, policies, ordinances, and present a complete analysis of the situation, taking into consideration the projects and the purpose of the mitigation funds, and present recommendations to decision makers for the improvement of those policies. So we want to produce a document with the collection of all of those regulations, and also the proposal of any changes if necessary. We want to consider what is what other jurisdictions are doing in terms of mitigation and best practices regarding green infrastructure. That is the use of environmental options to prevent damages or to reduce risks in hazardous areas, basically. Usually when people think about mitigation, they just talk about what is considered gray infrastructure, that is construction, but we want to also include, sorry. We are considering other best practices that are available in and has been used, a few of them in Puerto Rico, but the majority in other jurisdictions. We want to include social and economic aspects. If we propose a change or amendment in any regulation, we want to consider the possible effects in social and economic aspects of the community or the municipality. Also includes considerations to the land use and the change that could present to the actual city structure. Sorry. What we expect is a team of either planners, scientists of different areas, could be coastal, could be geological areas, also lawyers. We are already considering ¿Me escuchan? Me fui.
Te escuchamos, Carlos.
¿Pueden ver
La presentación no se ve.
Ok, dame un segundo. ¿Fui yo o fue aquí? ¿O fue la agencia? Dame un segundo. Sorry. Hago esto para acá. ¿En qué slide me quedé? Permítame mover las distintas pantallas. Anthony, let me know if you can see the presentation.
Sí.
Sí, okay. Give me a second. Okay. Everything's fine, right? Sorry. Okay. Okay. So we want to hire this group of experts in different areas. We have been having meetings with other entities like universities and other NGOs that have some kind of expertise in the matters of policies, environmental areas, and mitigation projects and things like that. So the idea is to have two groups, this group of experts from the academics and NGOs, and also this group of professionals that will be hired through this RFP to sit down and discuss all the different aspects of the policy that we have in Puerto Rico and possible proposals to amend or change those policies and regulations. We may hire one or more firms to do so, and we're not expecting to hire someone, just one firm for the all-around project. We may hire different groups to attend different subjects, depending on their expertise. Basically, you can see the key staff, but the most important part is that once we sign the agreement, we expect to we expect the entity to have the key staff available within 2 weeks after the agreement is signed. And also, in case of different type of analysis, if that analysis required by the Puerto Rico law requires a specific license, like, I don't know, maybe lawyers or engineer or an architect or planner, the entity must have a person with that license available. Okay, so we need to follow any state law. If the analysis is not needed, like in social analysis or economic analysis, we don't need any license. Very important, as part of the evaluation, we are going to review the key staff, the experience of the key staff. We expect the entity to demonstrate the experience of the group, of their staffing group, and also the experience working in similar projects. We know that it could be difficult to have a previous project very similar to this one, but in those that we want to see experience in those environmental or regulation areas. This is a list of the tasks that we are gonna, or the services that we are requiring. You will receive one slide per service. As part of the presentation, I'm not going through all of them. I just want to discuss this part. And also this description is included in the RFP package that you receive, and is also described in the maps document that are available in our webpage. Okay, first we're going to start with an analysis of the existing policy framework. We already started doing something similar for the creation of the program, but we need to check, we need to make sure that we have all the existing policies, laws, regulations. We may have to review municipal ordinances also. And we need to create an analysis of those laws or regulation policies. There is something very particular in Puerto Rico that is common in many aspects of Puerto Rican governmental administration, and is that we have many laws and regulations that are across different type of different types of documents, and also agencies. Many agencies handle different aspects of mitigation or reconstruction regulations and policies, and we need to collect those and analyze those, because the idea is that we are going to spend or invest basically $8 billion in the mitigation of different hazards in Puerto Rico. And we want to make sure that the policy is in place to guarantee that those hazards, that the projects that we are going to invest in will not be candidates to mitigation in the future. So we may have the policies in place. We may haven't done the best work or executing those policies. We want to analyze that. We want to present that to the decision makers, because we want to make sure that if we invest in a project, in a specific project, that project is not will not suffer of that lack of execution in that matter. So For example, yeah, I'm not going to give example, sorry. In this part, I'm going to talk about example later. Public engagement is very important. As I mentioned before, we are already having conversation with other entities like universities and NGOs. And we want to, everybody to sit in the table and discuss these options that we are going to present. This is not only a document or a program that will be produced by a state agency and be presented to the decision makers. This is a program that we want to document, that we want to be considered and analyzed, and that we want everyone to share information and the best options and to apport ideas to this document. So it's not it will not be a closed document. It will be a document that we're gonna start working in here in Vivienda, but will be published and shared through different groups before being open to the public. So we need a communication strategy that will be discussed with, internally with the vendor, and also and public engagement strategy that will be also discussed. And that strategy will include public hearings and public meetings and things like that. As any document, any planning document will include vision, goals, objectives, and activities, and also a strategy of an implementation strategy. We also want to include if we propose a change in a law change or wording in a regulation or specific law or something, we want to produce that wording, and we want to present to the decision makers their draft of what should be proposed. If that idea, if that proposal may affect some environmental aspects or economic aspects or social aspects, we also want to include some kind of analysis regarding that. So it's not only to produce the document, the physical document of the changes, but also an analysis of the condition and what may cost. All subrecipients and all vendors that are working with us must submit reports and are subject to compliance, all the compliance regulations regarding CDBG-DR funds, and in this case, CDBG-MIT funds. That's the same for everyone. And also a task, that coordination task will be through different agencies and collaborators. That is not only Vivienda, but also in case that we need to have meetings with the Department of Natural Resources, or with the Planning Board, or the Department of Justice, or Asociación or Federación de Alcaldes, things like that. We divided the things to be submitted in deliverables and task, or task and deliverables. First is the analysis of the existing policy framework. That is, I already described that. We expect to receive that analysis within the first 3 months. Then we have the data analysis that that will be internal and with some groups, small, very specific groups, and we expect to work on that for 6 months. 6 months after the first 3 months. Then we will have the public engagement process. This process may take up to 6 months and will include communication and public meetings and public outreach with the general public. Not only by this time we were already being in conversation with specific groups. So this part is just for general public. Then the development of what is the vision, goals, objectives, and activities, and the strategy. And the idea of the strategy is once we have this draft of what the proposals will be, we want to establish what is going to be the strategy to follow up. The reporting part is that's basically for everyone. We usually receive one monthly reports or monthly progress report, depending on the program, and then one final document that includes all the different deliverables and tasks and milestones. And the monitoring and compliance, every vendor and subrecipient is subject to reporting and monitoring and compliance. Reporting on monitoring and compliance, and we have once the document is almost finished, we have the final draft. We have to sit down and review all documents and all the different aspects of the program. In this case, maybe through the previous part, that is the community, this part, the public engagement, meetings with communities, groups, we may have to sit down and preview part of the documents and work on changes on the document and include some ideas or possible changes in the regulation and things like that. And that's part of that process that will take us a few more, that may extend the original scope of 6 months of working in that part of the program. So this part, that is the quarterly report, we create some reports for regulatory agencies and the vendor. We expect the vendor to help us to prepare those reports by submitting the information. Basically, it's if the vendor submit every month or every 3 months the progress report that we usually work with, that part will be covered. So that these are reports that we produce, but it's important to know that besides the final submission, we have some monthly or quarterly reports. All documents will be considered property of the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, including raw data, analysis, and drafts. These are other activities that we may request during the process, during the program. It's very important. I think it's 5 years that will be included in. I'm sure that is included in the RFP documents and will be included in the contract. But entities that work with us must hold and manage the save the documents for, I think, 5 years. That's part of the Puerto Rico law, el Contralor. The Contralor. Please review on the document the 10.3 part, the allowance part, is not something that I feel comfortable discussing, but it's more something for the finance department. But we have that clause that may be available for you, and also all vendors may be request, or we may request vendors to sit down with other vendors from other programs for other CDBG-DR, CDBG-MIT, or planning programs to discuss items, ideas, and possible conditions that may change one or other program. So that's something that happens. They do not happen frequently, but sometimes we have to discuss different aspects of different programs that connects one with another. And because we are going to be discussing possible changes in regulation regarding the use of the funds, meetings with the maybe infrastructure team or housing team could be necessary. And that's all. Thank you. I think, let me stop here.
Thank you, Mr. Olmedo, for that important information. Now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. For the acquisition of the ERP documents, we have them already available in the RFP for download in our CDBG-DR website. That's the webpage you have on screen. Joint resources and combined arrangements. Considering the complexity of the services required herein and recognizing that the PRDOH may not obtain the services from an individual proposer, the PRDOH encourages the participation in this RFP of various individuals with experience in different fields, whether in partnership, corporation, or joint ventures. The agreement or association between two or more entities in which they're joined their resources to carry out specific tasks and or maximize resources to obtain greater benefits and results will allow for the use of the skills and specializations of each of the parties. If multiple firms are contracted, the selected proposals shall work in a combined arrangement in the best interest of the overall program to implement a timely and cost-efficient management structure. Now we're going to talk about the important dates for this RFP. The documents are already available in our webpage, as we already stated, since November 30th. Submission of questions and requests for clarification must be submitted on or before December 15, 2022. You will see the paperwork in the documents, the RFP documents. The responses to any questions or requests for clarification that we receive will be published in our webpage on December 22nd. And the proposals due date are from January 18th, 2023 at 9 a.m. up to January 20th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Submission of questions and addenda. Responses to all proposers' questions will be answered by addenda and will be posted on our CDBG-DR website. All documents related to this acquisition process, including the addenda issued by the Puerto Rico Department of Housing, are and will be available to download at the CDBG-DR website. All proposers are responsible to monitor the CDBG-DR website for any issued addenda in this RFP. Now, I leave you with my coworker, Gabriela.
Thank you, Catherine.
Sorry for the mistake here. We were having technical problems with the audio. Proposals will only be accepted electronically, and after submission from the prescribed deadline will not be allowed. The Department of Housing will neither require nor accept physical proposal submissions. If a proposal is submitted on paper and electronically, only the electronic submission will be considered for evaluation. Proposals will receive access to submit proposals after completing the registration process through the CDBG-DR website. Once the scheduled submission period begins, a link will enable access to the registration form. Please complete all required fields in the form to log in correctly. Proposals must be submitted within the closing date and time schedule. Access to upload the proposals will begin 3 business days before the closing scheduled date and time. The proposals will be evaluated by the evaluation committee. So the evaluation committee will only evaluate proposals according to the following criteria listed in orders of importance. Professional qualifications and experience of the proposers to successfully perform the services required in this RFP, as evidenced by the successful implementation of similar programs in large, complex, and public organizations, preferably state government and municipalities. Professional qualifications and specialized experience of the proposed key personnel, as evidenced by relevant experience to the roles proposed. Quality of the proposed approach and its relevance to the services described in this RFP, including implementation, schedule, and understanding the Department of Housing goals. Capacity of the key personnel and the ability to commit adequate time to effectively perform the services in the role assigned within the required timeframe. Also, financial stability of the proposer and its capacity to effectively perform the services. And the reasonable overall price, allocation of effort, and overall value offered. Proposers and first-tier subcontractors must be registered in the System of Award Management, better known as SAM, at the time of the proposal submission, or initiate the registration process right after submission. For more information, please visit the SAM website that is displayed on the screen. There is no fee to create, renew, or update your registration. Award will only be issued to entities that are clear and not ineligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, or HUD-imposed limitation of denial participation. Now, to explain about federal compliance requirements, we have Carolina from Federal Division.
Good morning, everyone. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, but it's not.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the space to present compliance and labor standards requirements. This presentation is prepared in English. However, should anyone need this presentation in Spanish, you can request using the protocols for this RFP. I am representing the Department of Housing Federal Compliance Team, led by Maria del Carmen Figueroa. Today, we will discuss as part of our agenda an overview of compliance roles and responsibilities. We will also cover some tools that are available online. We will also talk about documenting efforts, taking advantage of training that's made available, and reporting requirements, as well as frequently asked questions. In this presentation, we will be discussing Section 3 training, hiring, and contracting opportunities, minority and women-owned business participation, and fair housing and equal opportunity. Contractors or subrecipients using CDBG-DR or CDBG-MIT funding have certain roles and responsibilities. These include assigning staff who will attend the day-to-day implementation of federal compliance requirements, attending trainings and workshops, using tools and templates, executing the activities, and completing documentation that's required. You can also participate in Department of Housing sponsored technical assistance sessions. You must complete quarterly reporting and comply with the reporting requirements. The procurement package contains sections that speak to the applicability and the requirements for MWBE. Within those sections, you will find helpful links to online resources that are made available, such as the policy guide. Procurement packages also contain language for Section 3 under 24 CFR 75. Although for this particular procurement, the contractor awarded will not need to comply with Section 3. However, you may find the information useful if you are seeking to prove Section 3 status to earn potential bonus points. Let's talk about Section 3. Section 3 is a federal requirement from the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. This requirement states that we should provide to the greatest extent feasible job training, employment, contracting, and other economic opportunities generated by this HUD financial assistance to be directed to low and very low income persons and businesses. The Department of Housing makes available a Section 3 policy guide on their website, both in English and in Spanish. Contractors must read and implement activities as applicable and necessary. They also are responsible for their subcontractors assuring that benchmarks are met. For Section 3 projects, 24 CFR 75 has established the following benchmarks. 25% of the total labor hours for a project should be work hours of Section 3 workers. And from that 25%, 5% of the total labor hours should be work hours of targeted Section 3 workers. Let's talk about the definition of a Section 3 business. A Section 3 business refers to a business concern meeting at least one of the following criteria, which is documented within the last 6 months. The business is at least 51% owned and controlled by low or very low income persons. It could also be a business that has at least 51% ownership and controlled by a public housing resident or residents who currently live in Section 8 assisted housing. It could also be a business that has over 75% of the labor hours performed for that business over the prior 3-month period by Section 3 workers. In this slide, we're going to look at the definition of a Section 3 worker. A Section 3 worker can be any worker who fits or, when hired within the last 5 years, fit at least one of the following categories. The worker's income for the previous or annualized calendar year is below the income limit established by HUD. It could also be a worker who is employed by a Section 3 business concern. Or the worker is a youth build participant. Now let's talk about what a targeted Section 3 worker is. A Section 3 targeted worker for community development financial assistance projects is a person who is employed by a Section 3 business. It could also be a person who currently fits or when hired fit at least one of the following categories as documented within the past 5 years. Someone living within the service area or the neighborhood of the project as defined in 24 CFR 75.5 or a youth build participant. The neighborhood or service area for a targeted Section 3 worker is that in which you can find at least 5,000 persons within a 1-mile radius of the project. If there are less than 5,000 persons within that 1-mile radius, you can expand that radius until you have 5,000 persons around the Section 3 covered project site. Each year, HUD releases new income limits. These income limits typically come out around April. The latest income limits for 2022 are made available on the slide. The Department of Housing has created various forms for helping maintain compliance. There is a Section 3 plan that can be used by contractors or subrecipients. There are also Section 3 self-certification forms. And finally, there is a form to help you document your efforts. Let's take a closer look at your Section 3 plan. This document helps you identify new hiring needs, subcontracting needs. It helps you plan your outreach efforts and assists your coordinators in identifying the day-to-day activities. It helps you define compliant procedures, and it helps you understand your reporting requirements. You can use the link on the slide to visit the website and download a Section 3 plan template. In this slide, we want to focus on the Section 3 self-certification forms. These useful tools help you uncover if workers or subcontracting businesses meet the income thresholds required. HUD offers also a business registry. This registry allows you to register yourself as a Section 3 business. The registry also has a tool that helps serve folks looking for Section 3 business databases. We will now turn our attention to minority and women-owned business compliance. There are various regulations that call for the inclusion of minorities and women business enterprises. 2 CFR 200.321, as well as Executive Orders 11625, 12138, and 12432 establish the participation of MWBE firms, which seek to ensure that when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance are directed to minority business enterprises and women business enterprises. The Department of Housing has established an MWBE policy guide. This is available on the website in both English and Spanish. You can access those documents using the link on the slide. Let's look at what a minority business enterprise is. An MBE is defined as a business which is at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more American citizens of the following ethnic minority and/or gender and/or military veteran classifications: African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, Hasidic Jew, persons with disabilities, and other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. Women business enterprises, or WBEs, are businesses that are at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women. The owners must be U.S. citizens or legal resident aliens whose business formation and principal place of business are here in the U.S. or its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. The MWBE policy guide will identify that there are goals which apply to professional services, purchasing supplies, and construction contracting. There is a total of 20% minimum participation goal. This 20% is comprised of 10% for women-owned businesses and 10% for minority-owned businesses. Contractors are expected to perform good faith efforts for contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing opportunities of $10,000 or more during the life of the contract. The Department of Housing has also created various forms for helping maintain compliance with MWBE. One of those is the MWBE Utilization Plan. This document template allows contractors or subrecipients to identify how they plan on being in compliance with these contracting goals. There is also a waiver form. This document allows contractors or subrecipients to identify if they meet the requirements to waive their goals for MWBE. Let's look at the MWBE Utilization Plan. This tool helps you compile data for your subcontracting It helps you identify what needs you may have. It helps hold discussions on creating supplier and contractor listings, and it provides awareness of meeting the goal for the contract and tracking. You can use the link on the slide to go to the website and download the plan template. Let's review how you should complete your MWBE utilization plan. The Department of Housing Utilization Plan template can be used throughout the life cycle of your contract. Completing the plan is pretty easy. You should read the general instructions in row 3 and complete sections A, B, and F from the document. Complete the information requested in the yellow cells. When we talk about certified minority or women-owned businesses, we are referring to those who have filed applications with federal entities such as SBA and others that you see here on the slide. Businesses who are certified can provide proof of completing an application process to be officially recognized as a certified minority or women-owned business. If you are registered as an MWBE, you should provide your valid certificate or other evidence in response to this RFP. In this section, we will be discussing how to complete your efforts and quarterly reporting. In order for you to report your efforts, the Department of Housing provides a tool. This tool helps you document and identify how often you are seeking interactions with Section 3 businesses and MWBE businesses. The quarterly reporting form allows for you to share and report your data with the Department of Housing. This allows the agency to fulfill oversight responsibilities and monitor the progress throughout the year. The Department of Housing's quarterly reporting form allows for the user to capture multiple compliance areas all in one Excel form. Section 3 data is collected. MWBE data is collected as well. FHEO information is also documented within the report. And finally, for those who have construction projects, there is a report for Davis-Bacon Unfound Workers Efforts Reporting. Awarded contractors will be responsible for reporting 4 times a year, on April 5th, July 5th, October 5th, and January 5th. This ensures that you are meeting benchmarks and documenting your efforts. The quarterly reporting template is also available on the Department of Housing website. Let's briefly discuss FHEO. Your RFP package will also contain a model contract which outlines fair housing and equal opportunity areas of compliance. Contractors are responsible for ensuring compliance with federal civil rights and fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and so forth, ensuring that all necessary efforts are being made. The Fair Housing Act and Sections 109 and 504 prohibit discrimination against the following protected classes of people: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The Fair Housing Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There are many executive orders, laws, and statutes that govern the non-discrimination of protected classes to ensure equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. Equal opportunity is afforded to protected classes through a number of these federal laws and executive orders. The Department of Housing has published policy documents attending FHEO as well as Language Access Plan. These policies must be implemented by contractors and subrecipients. They are publicly available online in both English and Spanish. You are encouraged to click on the links and access the resources available. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Department of Housing must ensure that all programs affirmatively further access to fair housing and that the programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. Reasonable accommodations are changes made to policies, practices, services, and structures, or modifications to afford equal opportunity to individuals with disabilities. The costs associated with providing reasonable accommodations and modifications are to be incurred by programs receiving federal funding. HUD contemplates these additional costs as necessary to ensure that the programs and activities it funds do not discriminate against people with disabilities. The slide contains a link for you to access the reasonable accommodation page on the Department of Housing website. Limited English proficiency refers to a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico's high Spanish-speaking population, all entities and contractors using the CDBG-DR funding must seek to ensure that both a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English or Spanish will not place them at a disadvantage in the participation of programs. Let's briefly discuss some common, frequently asked questions. Can a business be both Section 3 and MWBE? The answer is yes. A business or a contractor can be both because these compliance areas are actually separate. Section 3 identifies the level of incomes to determine the status. MWBE uses race and gender information to qualify a business. If I am not planning on subcontracting, do I still need to complete documents? The answer is yes. You should still submit your MWBE utilization plan, the documentation of efforts template, and your quarterly reports. If Section 3 doesn't apply to my contract, do I still have to complete the quarterly report? The answer is yes. You will have to complete the MWBE portion of the report and the portion of the report that attends to FHEO. If I'm either an MBE or WBE, do I fulfill the total goals? You may have safe harbor for one of the goals for MWBE participation of 10%, but you will still have an additional 10% goal to show good faith efforts for any subcontracting or purchasing you perform with the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT funding. What happens if I don't fulfill the goals before the end of my contract? All awarded contractors should perform and document their efforts. The Department of Housing has developed templates discussed in this presentation that help you complete the exercise. You can submit a waiver before the end of your contract for approval. This waiver request should be submitted with the efforts and justification as appropriate. Thank you for attending today's training. We hope you found the material helpful. Please remember to direct all your questions through the established protocols for this procurement. Thank you to the procurement team for allowing us to present this material. I will stop sharing the presentation so you can continue with the session.
Thank you to all the people present in this meeting. This will be all the information we have to share with you. Remember to keep watching our webpage for any changes and any addendums we can be publishing, and take into consideration the due dates for the process. Thank you very much and have a good day.